Total Logic and the University of Life, Chapter 9, The Blessing. The next morning I awoke early. The bright sun of a new day was streaming in through the window. There were a number of clocks on the walls of my room, and they all showed a different hand position, so I couldn't tell exactly what time it was. But I knew it was early by the blazing light of the shadow sun in the sky, and I felt amazingly refreshed and peaceful. The knowledge I needed to attain the biological dream was all around me, flowing in the air. There were to be more classes, more learning, I knew, so I got up, got dressed, and got going. Who knows where I might end up today? Walking out of the room, I instinctively took the magical list out of my pocket that listed the courses for the day. This list automatically changes, as I've discovered, updating itself depending on where I was on the path at any one moment. Depending on who or what I was, the course list reflects it and determined where it was that I was to go next. I slipped on my brown leather boots, grabbed my jacket, and left the room. That is when my friend Arthur the Frog appeared in front of me. "Are you doing well this morning?" "Yes, Arthur, thank you. I'm just looking to see where I go next." I looked at my list, and I read it out loud. More on validating and mirroring. Okay, I thought to myself, I guess this is where I'm at today, and this is where I need to go. "That would be on the main floor, sir, right this way." Arthur proceeded to show me to my classroom. He seemed to always be right where I needed him, so we proceeded down the great stairs to the front entry of the main building and followed the signs that pointed in only one direction, the direction to more on validation and mirroring. "Thank you, Arthur," I said as I turned and walked away down the long hallway. I entered the room and took my usual seat up near the front. There were many chairs in there. I could have sat anywhere, but for some reason I felt the other seats were taken. I would go to sit in a particular seat and felt that it wasn't mine. My chair was up there just to the left of the teacher's desk, like it had been in every room I went in. So I walked to that area of the room and took my usual seat. Alfred walked into the room shortly thereafter. "More on validation and mirroring," he said as he entered the class. He paused for just a moment in the doorway, looked around, and then entered. After a minute of standing in the front of the room, he proceeded to speak. I speak of this again because it proved to be such an area of confusion for me. I came out of childhood completely baffled by emotions. The rules of my parents were that emotions get in the way. Eventually, as I was getting my master's degree in human psychology, I wrote my thesis on emotions. "What you don't learn in childhood may become your greatest strength as an adult," it was called. This, my friends, is a very convoluted area. Mostly I think this is because people are trained to think about emotions and thoughts in ways that don't work, that don't lead to clarity. I abandoned using terms like affective and cognitive some years ago as they seemed just too misleading. Previously, I had abandoned the use of the mind and body. For me, these attempts at taxonomy, splitting things by labels in order to better grasp what was going on, just didn't help either. What I found is that the mind intimately responded to and influenced the body, and it seemed to me extremely difficult to draw the line between them. The concept of "I believe the same" is even more so confusing. It's confusing boundaries with affective and cognitive. I see it that emotions operate simultaneously with thoughts, interacting strongly all the time. I can define them separately, but I think it is no use to try to perceive them separately. Yet many disagree with me, and that is fine. The bottom line is that I'm trying to understand something. I believe you must look at both their thinking and their feelings simultaneously. What they are thinking, what are they feeling, and what is triggering what. The artificial distinction taught in imago relationship therapy between validation and empathy in the dialogue process I find unusual. The use by relationship therapists in the human world of the semantics of feeling to label thoughts and ignore the act of feelings I find deplorable. You've learned a bit so far about pre-validation. I will recap a couple of the concepts and add them to what I will share here today. Remember, Alfred continued, all people are congruent with who they are. Their acts, words, deeds are the result of the components of who they are, whether they know about these components or not. I recall the lesson from my psychology teacher when we were studying rats. At one time, she wrote a formula on the blackboard for why a rat turned left in a maze. The formula had many factors which all worked together in producing the behavior of the rat. What she wrote implied a large number of factors. I asked how many factors were involved. She said, pulling this number out of her mental back pocket, I imagined probably around 600. I then asked, how many factors do you think are involved in a human when they turn left at an intersection? Her response, probably more than 25,000. I assume this number came from her same black pocket. You see, there are many uses for the word sense, but after long consideration, I decided to use the word for this idea of congruence with self. To make sense is to be congruent with yourself, the known and the unknown parts. Thus, and at that moment, Alfred turned to the blackboard and wrote in an extra bold lettering style the following line: all people make sense all the time. He then turned back to the room and continued, I put this up on the blackboard because to me it is one of the most important concepts you will ever learn from me. I also put this up on the wall because on the wall of my castle as well. I do this in order to practice this mental tool. When someone says they make sense, I think of these words. When someone says that they make no sense, I think of these words and often practice saying, of course they make sense. When someone does something that baffles me, I think of their statement and wonder what led them or her to do it, what his or her sense is. When someone tells me that I don't make sense, I respond, silly, of course I make sense. When I am confused by my own behavior, I think of these words and become curious about myself. I found it useful to grasp that because a person makes sense does not mean I understand it or even they understand it, nor does it mean that I like it, I agree with it, encourage it, or condone it. I don't even have to learn about their sense. They still make it, period. I believe any person's congruence, their sense, can be seen as a totality, or it can be appreciated as the sum of the falling together of innumerable components, including feelings and thoughts. Remember, my teacher's 25,000 factors as to why a person turns left at the intersection? Most of the time, when I hear some of the major factors, that some seem more important than others, I will have a body sensation of aha, or oh, I've got it. This seems a startled feeling and seems connected almost to the sound of puzzle pieces falling into place. This experience can take place as I am trying to understand someone else, and it can take place when I'm trying to understand myself. Oh, I got while I do that. This is my definition of understanding: to grasp someone's sense, to see enough of the components of that person's sense to have the experience of things falling into place. I believe this experience has something to do with the human need for the safety and reliability, and we have just perceived something that seems reliable to us. I was taught in Imago relationship therapy to say, you make sense. I've heard other therapists teach this. People say, you make sense because I would do that, or this seems the flip side of the coin of saying, you don't make sense because I disagree with you. You see, I cringe at using my sense to understand others. I built a model of my dad, and my model of him made sense in my head. But if I told him this, he would think I was immature and not like me. Wow. So what to do? So here we sit. You have a whole self with you which you are always congruent. You have a model of yourself as well. That model is not the whole of you, but is based on what you know about yourself. You also have the model of what you think I want you to be, what you should be. This model is based on your memories of experiences with me. I have a model of you which is based on my memories of experience with you. When we sit with each other, there's only one reality, and they're mental models of each of us present in the room. That's 8, gads, yes, 8 perceptions of who we are between the two of us. Now, this is only if we are calm. if we can add another two models when we both get upset. When I am panicky, I imagine that you are my worst nightmares, the reincarnation of my worst traits of my childhood caretakers. Finally, we can add another two models when we are both romantic. When I am in love, I imagine that you are the incarnation of the best parts of my childhood caretakers, plus a person skilled in the biological dream. When we come together, there are potentially 12 selves of us in the room. Alfred then broke away from his desk and ran in a circle in front of the classroom, yelling, "Help, help, help!" Then he stopped and continued in a more dignified fashion. "This is so complex," he continued. "How can anyone handle this?" "Well," and the cello teacher said, "practice, practice, practice. What I show, what I teach you, it will become easy. I get this knowing what was right, what was the starting place. But practice was what made it easy." I think the task is easier if you are shown it by other people. If your parents and teachers understood this and acted it out, I think it would have flowed smoothly into you as you grew up. I think we were all designed for this. That didn't happen for me, and it probably didn't happen for you. So that brings us back to validation and the question of whom do you validate? I've defined this as bearing witness to your partner's sense. I've defined that it is successful when they feel understood. But which model or self is it that you focus on? The answer: they validate your model of yourself and nothing more. At any given moment, they are operating, living, and actualizing themselves with that in mind. If you bear witness to what they know and how they perceive themselves, they will feel understood. Anything else does not seem to work. You see, you can share later what you think all you want, just not while you are validating them. This means that you have to be able to put aside, when validating them, your knowledge of them or of anything else that is outside their awareness. That includes your model of them with your likes and dislikes, and they have to do the same when validating you. Remember boundaries, because someday when you start using this out there in your own very real world, you're going to need excellent boundaries in order to distinguish between what is their stuff and what is your stuff. You will need boundaries in order to protect your lizard when you mirror or validate. Just remember that. You see, this is quite a skill. Here's a story about validation and mirroring. It might help you tie them together. A couple I saw along the path was in business together. The husband had a habit of clumsily forgetting to call clients back, while the wife was irritated by this trait, feeling they would lose money. On one particular day, the wife got a call from an important client who had work to give the husband. She took down the message and put the note on his desk. This was about 9 a.m. Around 11 a.m., the client called again. Got an answering machine and left an eager message. At 11:30, the husband got the message from both his desk and from the answering machine. He was trying to do better about calling people back, knowing that his past sloppiness irritated his wife. He called the clients, took their order, and started on their work. That evening, the wife got home first. She checked the answering machine and heard the eager 11 a.m. message from the client, which her husband had not erased. Thinking that he hadn't read her note, nor had he listened to the answering machine all day, and that he was losing business, she built up a head of steam. Darn that irresponsible wretch. About 7 p.m., the husband arrived home, having had a long day, but at least he was caught up on all the messages, and there was his wife steaming. "You didn't call those clients," she yelled. Clearly she had a large load of high emotions, anger, grief, fear, all going at once. The man had learned a lot about validation. What should he do? If he interrupted her send of emotion to tell her that he had called the clients, she would feel invalidated. If he listened and witnessed and validated her emotional steam, she might feel betrayed when later he told her that he had taken care of it. What should he do? What should he do? Well, he waited and listened and mirrored and validated his wife. Her anger made lots of sense to him. Her anger no longer hurt him. Sure, he felt misunderstood, but it wasn't his turn yet. She went on for some time. He saw, encouraged, and bore witness to her validity, both in thinking and in her emotions. When she was worn down, as people will when they are being listened to, he was careful to wait until he sensed she was through. Then he asked carefully, was she ready to hear him? Yes, she was. Then he told her of dealing with the client's call before noon. I talked to them both the next week, and both felt what he had done was pretty good. How often he had interrupted her, and she had interpreted him when they had strong emotions before, and how badly they felt. Emotions don't turn off like thoughts. They take good time to cool. His taking a stand and validating her even when she was wrong seemed courageous and pretty skilled. From her point of view, she was right anyway. She was valid, and he affirmed it. The lesson is that you dig in to know they are themselves and their words, and then look for the aha moments. It's the sound of the puzzle pieces falling together in their puzzle and your copy of it. When you affirm them, bear witness to their sense. How to validate is the question. Well, the most important step is to pre-validate. Let me explain, the turtle said. You can always do this, even if your partner doesn't give you much information. Pre-validation is both an attitude and action. The attitude is to recall that your partner makes sense before they open their mouth. They make sense to themselves. But where else is there to make sense? I've learned to reject the phrase, you make sense to me, because it can so easily mislead me. I prefer the phrase, I see your sense. So, if you are pre-validating, your posture is one of curiosity about your partner's sense. The action parts of pre-validation are that many little acts and words that indicate your attitude of pre-validation. The most important acts, I think, is the facial expressions, the voice tones, and the gestures that show your gentle and durable curiosity about their sense at whatever they say. Yep, sure, I get it, cool, go on, I see, go on, I get you, go on, hey, it's great to see what's going on for you, thanks for sharing, these types of things. There are lots of phrases that you can use. Of course, you did that. It made sense to you, and I'm curious why. Sure, heck, you make sense all the time, just as I do. What is your sense in this case? If I were in your shoes completely, I would surely do the same thing. However, I'm not. What was going on for you? What led you to do that? What was going on for you at the time that pointed towards doing that? What led up to doing that? I hear you don't know why you did that, but what are your guesses? I'm sure your actions made sense. Note that sometimes you have to pre-validate someone when they are pre-validating themselves. I know you think you don't make sense, but I don't doubt it for a moment. Think pre-validation statements are best when they sound pretty confident. So if you are with someone or in a group and pre-validate, if you are with someone or in a group and pre-validate enough, it seems to me that people relax into a kind of openness of sharing. Eventually, in many cases, all that is needed is pre-validation to make a first person feel understood, validated. You see, this all works in with the skills of mirroring. Understand this. When a person is telling you about themselves or herself, you may get the sense of, oh, wow, as you hear the components of their sense falling together. This is a fine time to stop them and check it out. Don't be hesitant to use their words. Oh, let's see if I have you. You thought I had forgotten about you all day and were lonely. Did I get that? If they say yes, then you invite them to continue. Remember, mirroring, use the pole. You may get some of their points, but they may not be finished. Also, I suggest you always end a validation statement with an invitation for correction and to continue. This is the check and pull step, which is the mirroring as in mirroring. Sometimes the pieces fall into place and your partner is going on. A validating pull works wonders. I'm getting this, I see that, go on. Oh, wow, remember. That little startle reaction that happens when you get it may be invisible to them. Making it explicit never hurts. Now, when they stop talking, you have two options. If you feel sure that you can see a large portion of their sense, then tell them so, and using their words, bear witness to their sense. Let's see if I have this. You did so and so because you believe such and such, and I saw this and heard that. Am I getting you? If you don't feel sure that you can see their sense, then invite them to continue using a developing or deepening pole in the direction that you feel uncertain about. Since they always make sense, you can pull in any area where the sense is unclear to you. Remember that they want to feel understood and will often be eager to fill in the areas where you feel mystified. I know that makes sense to you, but could you share more about what you meant by that word? Could you share more about why that might bother you so much? Could you share more about how long that has bothered you? I'm trying to understand you, but I'm missing what is your belief about that. You see, a deepening pull is an invitation to speak more fully and completely about something. Make sure you remember to invite a person to share their emotions and feelings as well as their thoughts. Could you share more about how you felt when that happens? What were you feeling right before that happened? That sounds pretty important. Can you recall when you felt like that before? But be careful, a deepening pull can be misused easily in such a way that the listener starts to direct the sender. Use the image that a deepening pull is a drop of sand around which your partner can develop a crystal of thoughts. A misused deepening pull can come across as invalidating. Watch your partner and see if they are gratefully receiving your pull or are hesitating. I suggest that you don't refer to yourself while you are validating them. It doesn't seem to work. Particularly avoid anything like, you do that because I do that kind of statement. Remember that at this point, the conversation is all about them, not you. So build up a solid sense of self in others. Make them feel that they are not crazy. I believe that all people need quite a bit of affirmation frequently during their lives. Particularly, it seems they need a sort of stamp of approval when they are experiencing or doing something far from society's norms. This is not a stamp of agreement, but one of validity. I think people need to be affirmed that they are not crazy. We often ask for this. Do I make sense? Does what I say make sense to you? I'm not nuts thinking this, am I? I believe this need is there for all of us, but begins to grow strong in a human child at age 2 or 3 as they begin to run into the norms of society as expressed by their caretakers. Kids will do or say something which makes sense for them and will ask for this stamp of approval. If they receive a message like, no one in their right mind would do that, or you're crazy, kid, or that's crazy thinking, or you're wrong, then I think the need for validation grows bigger and bigger. For me, it is a case of childhood innocence running into a crazy adult. Thus, many of us lose faith in our own sanity in early childhood. We become fairly compliant, and when in adulthood, start on the process of repair. Validation is, I believe, the primary tool for this repair. So give the gift of validation to the one you love. Frequently, I have to invite and invite people to open up to their own logic and emotions and sense that lead them to do what they do. This seems particularly true of codependent people. They often seem to either use other people's logic to explain themselves, or they fall back on the famous I don't know escape. I did that because I am irresponsible. I did that because I'm lazy. Irresponsible and lazy are the labels someone else put on them, and now they are using those labels to explain themselves. I believe one needs to have a good ear for this silliness and to invite them to share their own reasons, logic, and emotions. The act of validation also often seems to help people flourish. So what I do to help people I meet along the path in this area of validation, how do I teach it, you may ask? Well, my first step is to pre-validate all those I see along the path all the time. Pre-validate, okay, just pre-validate. I use this technique from the first time I see them. I also take every opportunity I can to seek their sharing their sense. As they are telling me about something they did, I might ask, oh, and why did you do that? Oh, what leads you to do that? Then I sound approving at anything they share. As I continue to see people, I explicitly teach pre-validation and validation so that a couple has the common language. I continue to validate and pre-validate at every chance I have. I use different teaching models that end up with validation. First, first I ask them, share with your partner something about yourself that you think they don't understand. I proceed to coach sharing and mirroring until the sending's complete. I use a prompted validation technique. I turn to the listener, that is the mirroring partner, and say, do you see why your partner does that? If they say yes, I prompt, okay, now you tell me why they did that. If they slip into using the wrong label, that would be their model of their partner, I stop them and direct them to share why your partner thinks they did that. This gets them into the correct validation model. If they can bear witness to their partner's sense, I then turn to the original sender and ask, did they get it? How does it feel to hear them say that? Usually the validated partner says they feel really good. Then I turn to the validation and say, now, all you have to do is make them feel that way 10 times a day forever. Practice makes it easy. Secondly, I incorporate what I call the odd dialogue. One partner starts by thinking of something, anything that their partner did that seems odd. They then prompt, when you did that thing, it seemed odd to me, and I don't understand what was going on for you. Could you share with me what was going on so that I can understand you better? I then use the prompt validation technique I mentioned above. Third, I call this one the movies. I put one partner into mirroring and straight poles, and I do the deepening poles. Here they are. Share with your partner your favorite movie, a little about it, and what you liked about it. Share with your partner your favorite character and why you like that person, or share with your partner your favorite scene in the movie. Share with your partner the frame of film. What was on camera at the point in that scene that touched you the most? Share with your partner what that moment, that frame reminds you of from your early childhood. I turn to the receiver and say, do you see why that spot in the film touches your partner so deeply? Tell me why. This becomes a prompted validation technique. One cool way to nature a person's self-awareness and eventual self-esteem I call super validation. I use this as a deeply affirming action when one partner has really revealed their sense in one of the teaching models above. I start this off by writing a sentence stem on the board. Here it is. Alfred turned to the blackboard and started writing. He wrote, I am getting it that you are the kind of person who sometimes, and then that stopped. He wrote that on the board. I say this and then I take turns with the listeners. So the sentence is, I am getting it that you are the kind of person who sometimes, and like I said, I say this and then I take turns with the listener. That would be the mirroring partner, making defining statements about the sender's self. Each word in the sentence stem is important. Our statements can be accurate or inaccurate, and each time the speaker gets to tell us, you're right or nope. But every time the speaker gets to hear and agree with positive self-defining statements of self, thus each time they are defining their selfhood. You see, pre-validation and validation go hand in hand with a basic cognitive skill that will enable power in your life while at the same time empowering others. It's a critical tool to use on your walk towards the biological dream and vintage love. In pre-validation, you go in already knowing that your partner makes sense. You understand and accept in yourself this to be already predetermined before you undertake the conversation of your life. Validation is the act of making the other feel understood, heard, making them feel that they make sense, and of course, they do. Alfred looked up at the round plastic clock on the wall. There were always a few clocks in each room, but none of them seemed to have the same time on them. They were there just the same in all the corners, and Alfred could see the time from wherever he happened to be in the room. He stopped talking for the moment, glanced at one of them, and said, before you go, I would like to share with you one small piece of wisdom that could go a very long way in your life. This, my friends, is a gift you can give away and reap incredible rewards from. This is an assignment that I would like you to do once you get back to your real life. It's very simple and it goes like this. Find a younger person than yourself and bless them once a day. This is a gift both for you and for them, and it is one that you can pass on. Let me explain. About 20 years ago, I was introduced to the importance of blessings and curses. A blessing was something that you put into someone's soul by word or act that durably helped them to grow more beautifully. Like very long-term fertilizer, a curse was the opposite, something you put into someone's soul by word or act that durably blocked them from growing beautiful. If you bless someone well, they will remember your gift for years and years. Much later in life, your words or actions will still be influencing them to grow into a more whole and wonderful person. If you curse someone, they will still be feeling the nasty influence of that act many years later as well. Perhaps you can take a moment now and recall those who blessed and those who cursed you. Alfred paused for a moment, folding his hands into one another, and then continued. The idea, I was told, is that all blessings come from above, from God. But most of the time, humans must act to make a blessing happen. A king or queen can easily bless others. The energy seems to come from above, down through them, to the one being blessed. A church leader can bless in the same way a father or mother can bless their children easily. The reverse also seems true. Curses seem to come from somewhere awesome, above or below. Humans are part of the process. A king or queen can curse, etc. Parents so easily can instill these deep negative scars in their children. As I was taught this, I was told that a person grows older as they come closer and closer to death and to becoming fully spirit. Their ability to bless or curse becomes greater and greater. An elder's power for this gift can be enormous. My assignment to you is to find at least one younger person and bless them every day. This will be good for your health, your soul, too, because in blessing others you will be blessed as well. Now, over the years, I have found all this to be true. While there are many ways to go about blessing people, I have realized one sure way: validation is a blessing. I've been delighted to discover that as I became better and better at validating people, so I have become more able to easily bless them. Pre-validation is the posture of planning to bless. Pre-validation is the offering of a blessing. When you pre-validate someone, it is very likely that they will share themselves with you in order to get that blessing you are offering. What a great idea. I also learned that as you validate others, as you pre-validate others, you hear some part of that effort or act. You anticipate your own blessing. Well, actually, the blessing of the one above passing through you. How cool. The reverse is true as well. Invalidating someone is cursing. Pre-validating someone, sending the message that you won't validate. So pre-invalidating someone, sending the message that you won't validate them, discourages people from sharing. Why would you talk and share with someone who appears to be ready to curse them? I have even found that silence can have the effect of cursing. The same seems true when you invalidate yourself. Your soul seems to shrink and starve. The opportunity to change is great. Almost everywhere I go, certainly out on the path, I meet people who are living through a blessing deficit situation. They are in frantic need, and it is so easy. So do it. Bless those around you. The world will be a better place if you do. Alfred bowed his head. It kind of shrank back into his shell a bit, and his arms and stubby hands drew back a little as well. I knew the class was coming to an end as he looked up at that point and simply said, "Thank you. Class dismissed."